Okay. Again, thank you for joining tonight's program of Effort of Virtual Academy. Tonight we have Thrown, Fired, and Glazed, the Redware Tradition from Pennsylvania and beyond. And at this time, I'd like to introduce Effort's curator, Carrie Moan, who will in turn introduce tonight's speaker.
Good evening, everyone, and thanks for being a part of the program tonight. The Effort of Virtual Academy has a very special guest speaker tonight, Jennifer Royer, who is the curator at Landis Valley. Landis Valley is just about 9 miles down the road from Ephrata. Jennifer has a Bachelor of Arts degree from Fordham University and a Master of Arts degree from the University of Leicester. She has been a curator at Landis Valley since 2011. She began her career as the coordinator of living history and director of exhibits and collections at the York County Heritage Trust in York. John Kohler was a guest curator that worked with Jennifer on both years of the exhibit. I'm also happy to say that the Ephrata Cloister participated in both years. The first year, we loaned 2 pieces of our collection to the exhibit, and the second year we have 1 piece on exhibit. So thanks for being here tonight, Jennifer, and take it away.
Thank you, Carrie. As Carrie said, I am Jennifer Royer, the curator at Landis Valley Village and Farm Museum. Starting in March 2019, Landis Valley exhibited the first round of Thrown, Fired, and Glazed, the Redware Tradition from Pennsylvania and beyond. The second installment opened in March 2020 with new redware on display. In all, approximately 400 pieces of redware from 37 lenders have been showcased. The second installment of the exhibit just reopened to the public. We have extended the exhibit to December 31st, 2021, so please come experience these pieces in person. Oh, why is it not moving? Oh, there. Tonight, I will be showing you my personal highlights of the exhibit. Along with John Kohler, I selected all 400 pieces in the exhibit with the aim to showcase the variety and skill of the redware potters. We ended up with 2 years of different redware exhibits because we couldn't narrow down all the wonderful pieces we saw. I've often been asked what my favorite pieces are, and every time I pick something new. Through these highlights, I'm hoping to show you the variety of the potter's work, including utilitarian pieces and wacky ones. We will move through a variety of artifacts until we come to my favorite piece that has been exhibited in both years of the exhibition. The first grouping of artifacts I selected are redware tiles that were seen on homesteads around the area. These tiles are known as Beaver tail roof tiles and handmade by Pennsylvania German potters using molds. They learned the style and technique in Germany. Number 1 and 7 are from the Shaintz homestead in Berks County. Number 6 is dated 1763 and is from the Ole Valley in Berks County. Number 4 is dated 1782. Number 3 is inscribed 1768. Some of the faces have been grooved with gutters or lines running lengthways on the tiles. These grooves produced by the fingers of the potters, each finishing his tile with lines that seemed most appropriate to him. A twofold purpose was filled by these grooves. First, they broke the monotony of the otherwise plain tile. Secondly, they furnished a means of keeping the rainwater away from the lateral joints and allowing water to run down the roofs more efficiently. The tiles also have a built-in nozzle or nose on the back, which acts as a hook since the tiles cannot be nailed into place. The picture on the left is a view of the market from the corner of Shippen and 2nd Streets in Philadelphia in 1787, as seen in the Columbian magazine. Note the red roof tile roof on the side of the wine, tea, brandy, and coffee shop. Several tiled 18th century roofs still survive in Berks County, especially in the Ole Valley. The photograph on the right shows a roof in a dilapidated condition, not from the failure of the tiles, but from the rotting wooden beams and rafters, so they could no longer carry their load. Pennsylvania Germans elevated redware from utilitarian household tools to works of art, using slipware and sgraffito decoration. They brought these techniques from Germany and passed them down over generations. Slipware was a technique of decorating or covering a piece with different colored clay. Slip or watered down clay was used in a variety of colors, including cream, red, or dark brown. A slip cup was used to quickly apply linear designs onto the pieces, using hollow quills that protruded from the bottom of the cup. The potter would then press the slip decoration into the piece using a rolling pin. These are some of the slip decorated pieces in the exhibit. This piece, on loan from the Daniel Boone homestead, was discovered in the chimney of the house during restoration. It is believed that it was placed there by the Boones. These are some of the slip decorated loaf dishes on display, except for the bottom right one. That loaf dish was not displayed, but is one of my favorites I've ever seen. It was sold at Christie's in 2003 for almost $27,000. It is from Circus 1775 and has a 6-quill yellow slip decoration and green dabs of color. All the other ones have 3 to 4 quill slip decorations. This is a 2-piece, 20-inch high molded urn made by Emanuel Suter at the New Erection Pottery in Rockingham County, Virginia. Suter grew up living and working on a farm. At 18 years old, he was farming and learning the trade of potting. As a Mennonite during the Civil War, he refused to join the Confederate Army. He furnished a substitute to go in his place and then paid $500 so that the substitute could come home. During the war, he went to Pennsylvania and worked at Cowden and Wilcox in Harrisburg. When he returned to Virginia, he formed a pottery shop on his farm. And eventually, he operated 3 different potteries over 46 years and ran each one individually. He sold the last pottery shop in 1897. In his diary that day, he wrote, "I was in town on business at the pottery. Sold it for $2,000. This relieves me of further trouble with that works." The pottery continued to operate a couple of years under different management until it closed. Most butter prints are hand-carved blocks of wood like these on the right. During the 18th and 19th century, farmers used butter prints and molds to decorate their butter. Each farmer used a different butter print that was specific to their individual farms to differentiate their butter from other people's butter at market. More butter prints were made in Pennsylvania in the 19th century than any other state. Rare are redware butter prints, such as seen here in the center and on the left. They have similar designs inspired as those found in wood. These are a variety of coin banks. Number 1 was made at the Nefer Pottery in Montgomery County. Number 2 has a molded dog, applied leaf, and white slip dots made in 1877 by Christian Shooter in Berks County. Number 4 is a bank shaped like a doghouse. Number 7 is shaped like a schoolhouse. Number 5 was made by Caleb Darlington Cope in Chester County at the Pottery Factory. And number 6 is a pierced bank with a bird finial that was possibly made by Jared Herring. This is a black glazed teapot made between 1840 to 1850 by the Northern Liberty Pottery. In 1812, Thomas Haig established the pottery in Philadelphia. He produced redware and stoneware. At the 3rd annual exhibition at the Franklin Institute in 1826, Thomas Haig received a bronze medal for the best red earthenware sent in and much improvement in the art. After Haig's death, his sons, James and Thomas, carried on the pottery, during which they used steam to grind the clay. Medals have been used to commemorate important events and to recognize and reward individual accomplishments and achievements for many years. By the 18th century, France had become the leader of sculpture in miniature. In fact, many of the dies from early American medals were cast in France. Such was the case with this 1777 Benjamin Franklin portrait medallion made in Paris by Italian sculptor Jean Baptiste Nini. Nini created the medallions from carved wax molds that were cast with clay. He created the details by hand. The medallions were commissioned by a businessman and friend of Benjamin Franklin. There are 5 types of Franklin medallions made from drawings sent to Nini, rather than drawings done of his own hand. The first medallion had a fur cap, as seen in the center. Nini also sent examples to Paris for approval with a liberty cap, a face with spectacles, and a face without spectacles. The additional pieces shown here were created using different materials, not redware. These are 2 flower pots made by Enos Smedley in Chester County. The one on the right is inscribed Mary Hipple, East Goshen, 1826. The one on the left is inscribed Ann Fawcett, Westtown Township. Smedley established the Westchester Pottery in 1831. He used clay imported from Philadelphia by wagon and railroad for his pottery. He also discovered clay in southern Chester and Delaware counties, and manganese from Osborne Hill, from which a black glaze was made. He received a diploma from the Franklin Institute for his skill in decorating with manganese dioxide glaze. After retiring from the pottery business, Smedley was a leading contractor in the borough and invested in real estate. There were more than 100 deeds to or from him on record in Chester County. This is a wall pocket made by George S. Freshley in Lebanon County. It can be wall mounted and filled with flowers. George S. Freshley owned Lebanon Pottery and Stove Brickworks, where he made all kinds of crockery and stove ranges. He was also the proprietor of the Eureka Ice Company, which sold coal and ice. Freshley was known more as a coal and ice merchant than a potter. He often donated ice to the Good Samaritan Hospital. The Lebanon Daily News listed a for sale advertisement in 1977 for an old established coal business that Freshley was selling on account of impaired health. These are some other examples of wall pockets. The pair in the upper right were made in 1879 by Anthony Wise Bacher in Virginia. Bacher's primary glaze of brown and tan, sometimes spattered, running, or marbled, has become indicative of his work. The wall pocket on the left was made by potter and farmer George Wagner in Carbon County. The wall pocket on the lower right is made out of silk and has a note with it that reads, "Made by Emma C. Diller, about 1854. Emma Diller was the mother of Henry and George Landis, the founders of Landis Valley. This is one of the oldest pieces on exhibit. It was discovered prior to the construction of the Metropolitan Detention Center on Arch Street in Philadelphia. It is a sugar mold from 1685 to 1850. The sugar trade was an important part of Philadelphia's economy. Raw sugar and molasses came on ships to Philadelphia from the West Indies in return for flour, preserved meat, and wood products. The raw sugar was refined in Philadelphia into fine white sugar for the table. During the refining process, molds and jars were used to crystallize the sugar. The sugar was packed in conical molds with holes in their tips. The molds were then fitted into jars so that the molasses could drain off the hardening sugar. The molds are unglazed redware with smooth interiors so that the sugar could slide free. The sugar loaves that came out of the molds were cone-shaped and would be cut with special pinchers. These molds and jars often broke due to their size. Some of them were 1.5 feet in diameter and about 3 feet tall. Once broken, they were used as fill before buildings were constructed in swamp areas. At this archaeological site, over 3,000 shards of sugar molds were found. These 3 pieces were made by Henry Fair in Tolpahocken Township, Berks County. Fair owned and operated the Henry Fair Pottery by himself from 1867 to 1891. The bank on the left was made by Henry for his daughter. All of these pieces were made by Carl W. Bach in Allentown. Bach, an immigrant from Stuttgart, Germany, opened the city of Allentown's first and only pottery works. Bach came from a long line of German redware potters. He specialized in utilitarian, horticultural, and decorative pieces. His primary preoccupation was making flower pots. He was renowned for his skill in industry, both in pottery and also as a florist. In 1896, the Pottery Works was turned over to Bach's son, who operated the business until 1905. After that, the business began to focus more on greenhouse plants and cut flowers. These items came from the original showroom, which were carefully placed in storage by the great-grandson of Carl Bach. Number 1 is a jar. Number 2 is a gravity-fed chicken waterer. Number 4 is a coin bank, and number 5 is a chicken feeder. Number 3 is a head jug. Head jugs have a ritual significance in Switzerland for healing illnesses that are believed to reside in the head. It is unknown whether Bach's head jugs were intended for this purpose. This is another head jug that is on exhibit. The intended purpose for this piece is also a mystery. However, we find that it's very similar to a chia head, but made approximately 100 years earlier. These are 2 redware apothecary jars with tin lids. They were used in a Hennish drugstore, which opened in 1782. It was one of the oldest pharmacies in the United States and was owned and operated by one family for 143 years in Lancaster City. The store passed from Carl Hennish to his son Augustus and then another son, John. John's son, Charles, became the owner of the shop in 1849. When Charles died, a nephew took over, and eventually his widow ran the store until the 1930s. This is one of the best examples of a pierced compote bowl that I have seen. A compote bowl is a vase-shaped dish on top of a based stem. It was made to serve the culinary dish called compote, which is basically a mixture of fruits with sugar syrup combined with items such as nuts, cinnamon sticks, and cloves. This unusually large bowl had its slip, melt, and firing, which makes the design and inscription hard to see. The design is of a spread eagle with a shield on its breast. It clutches arrows and olive branches in its talons, and in its beak, it holds a flying banner that reads "Freedom, Liberty." The inscription around the rim reads, "Say only that which is for good and become easy to love." A slang version of the inscription would be, "You would be easier to love if not so critical." This is a sgraffito decorated plate with copper oxide or green slip. It was made by Rudolf Gerber, who was active from 1811 to 1819. We don't know if this was its intention, but the cherub and fish designs are frequently associated with religious symbolism. These are 3 deal pottery pie plates. The Deal pottery was founded by Samuel Deal and later run by his sons Josiah and William. The pottery was known for the slip decorated flowers. On the right are 3 additional examples not found in the exhibit. These are 2 slip decorated plates made by Simon Singer in Applebackville, Haycock Township in Bucks County, which can be seen on the plate on the right. Singer purchased the Conrad Moonbuyer pottery for $2,500 at a sheriff's sale. The pottery operated until 1912. Singer was known for elaborately inscribed slip decorated plates such as these. The plate on the left reads J. M. Shaw, house painter, paper hanger, Quakertown, Bucks County, Penn. James M. Shaw was a paper hanger and painter until his death. These are 2 other Simon Singer plates that I saw, but decided not to put in the exhibit because we had the other 2 examples that I showed you. However, I wanted to share them with you. The one on the left reads, made over the 1810 pattern for H. H. Youngkin in Haycock, 1886, to A. B. Herring, Esquire, S. Singer, Potter. Youngkin was the owner of the pattern or plate mold dating from 1810 over which the new plate was formed. In 1886, Abel Brinton Herring became the owner of this plate. The plate on the right reads, Simon Singer, earthenware maker. Many potters felt the need to say something on their work. There was commentary on social issues, there were humorous inscriptions, and some pieces reminded others of religious teachings. Through these inscriptions, potters preserved many of the common sayings of the day in their own dialect. These sayings included proverbs, mottos, rhymes, and quotations. It is sometimes difficult to translate these inscriptions. Language can be very peculiar on pottery inscriptions. The words display characteristics that are unusual even in comparison to other writings of the times. The potters would blend both oral and written forms without any concern for correctness or grammar. Number 1 by Jacob Yoder reads, from the earth with understanding, the potter makes everything. Luck, glaze, and clay is his honest money's worth. Number 2 by George Huebner reads, no plaster can heal me, so wilt thou hasten with me out of this world of sorrow into the beautiful canopy of heaven. Number 3 by Samuel W. Wanger reads, clean and shave me, nice and fine, that I may please my loved one. Number 4 was made by Englishman Joseph Smith. Smith used English words on his pottery instead of more commonly used German. This plate reads, this dish and heart shall never part. What's interesting about this plate is children's author Catherine Millhouse used this plate in a book she wrote and illustrated in 1940 entitled Lavinia, A Story of the Pennsylvania Country. She dedicated a copy of the book to Milton Hershey. It reads, Milton J. Hershey, in whose museum Lavinia's dish has found a permanent resting place. Here you can see page 28 and 29 of the book. You can see there are various redware plates above the characters, and the one shown above Lavinia's head is the one we have displayed in the exhibit. Both of these plates were made by George Huebner. Number 1 is one of my favorites, and it reads, if it weren't for little men and little roosters, the cradles and chicken houses would stand empty. Number 2 reads, Susanna Stelt, her dish, as you would the men should do to you, do ye even so to them. This plate is by Samuel Troxel, and it reads, If I could swim like a swan, crow like a barnyard rooster, court like a sparrow, then I would be the darling of all the virgins. These beautiful sgraffito decorated plates were made by Andrew Hedman in Bucks County. Andrew Hedman arrived in Philadelphia in 1771 from Germany with his brother, who was also a master potter. They established a pottery in Philadelphia, where they produced Unitarian redware until 1786. That year, Andrew moved to Rock Hill Township in Bucks County, where he founded a pottery on roughly 30 acres he purchased. This decoration here is known as sgraffito and was created by using a sharp tool to scratch through the white or yellowish slip that was applied to the piece, revealing the red clay underneath. The whole plate would then be covered with a clear lead glaze. In the center on the left are two fat lamps that were possibly made by John Neese in Montgomery County. The wick was in the spout, and animal fat or cooking oil was burned to provide light. On the right is a grease lamp made by Jacob Mellinger, which also used animal fat or grease as fuel. This rare pie plate has a sgraffito horse and rider on the back and a slip inscription and date on the front. The inscription reads, "Where people sing, settle there, because evil people have no songs." The plate here on the left has been in both years of the exhibit. When we borrowed it, the Phillips Museum of Art thought the signature read O.J. Swin. I could not find any potters with that name, but after completing some research, I found the plate on the right with the same signature. The dark green background, heart with the dated interior, impressed circles, and overall style of the sgraffito decoration are all characteristic of the work of potter, farmer, and miller Solomon Grimm. A number of plates and jars attributed to Grimm rank as some of the most ambitiously decorated examples of early American redware known. These are some other examples of Grimm's work. You can see how similar they all are. All of these pieces were made by Willoughby Smith. When he was 19, he started working with Joseph and Daniel Fagg until he purchased the pottery shop in partnership with his mother-in-law, Rebecca Fagg, in 1864. The shop operated as Fagg and Smith Pottery until 1881, when Smith bought out Rebecca. The Willoughby Smith Pottery operated until Smith's death in 1905. Willoughby Smith was unusual because he produced pieces for both mail order and local customers. The top center photograph is of a flower pot sample kit and carrying case Willoughby Smith used to show what size flower pots he could make. Smith produced 1,000 small flower pots a day and 75,000 to 100,000 flower pots per year. The bottom center photograph is Willoughby Smith slip cup. In German, the words read white, green, yellow. The Raven Pottery and Tile Works was founded and built by Henry Chapman Mercer. Mercer started producing tiles at the pottery in 1898. He wanted to preserve old methods of handmaking tiles while portraying dying art forms within his tile designs. He operated the factory until his death in 1930. It was then passed on to his assistant, Frank Swain, who ran it until his death in 1952, and then it reopened to the public in 1964. On the left is the tile mosaic Summer from 1920. The Mercer Museum has one for each of the 4 seasons. On the right is the tile The Reaper. Similar tiles are in the center depicting other farming chores. This is a very unusual unglazed beehive, which imitates the form of a rye straw bee skeb, as seen on the right. Skebs are essentially upturned straw baskets under which bees form their naturally curvy honeycomb. Both of these vases are attributed to the Abraham Mercer Pottery. The pottery was built in 1832 by Abraham, who was not a potter. He hired a German potter to operate the pottery for him. The German also taught his son Peter the trade. Peter continued the pottery after his father's death. The clays used in the pottery was dug on the family's farm. It came in 4 kinds: blue, gray, red, and brown. This is a redware mortar and pestle, which was used to crush and grind ingredients into fine paste or powder. Mortar and pestles are usually made of hard wood, metal, ceramic, or hard stone. One of my favorite Lancaster City potters is the Gass family that arrived in Lancaster in 1818 from Baltimore and Germany. The Gass family formed a potting dynasty throughout Lancaster City in the 19th century, adding to the strength of the industry. By 1860, there were 7 pottery shops in Lancaster City. Conrad Gass established a pottery at the corner of Prince and James Streets in 1842. The annual sales for the pottery shop were $4,000 to $6,000. On average, 600 pots were made per day. Amos Gass was an apprentice to his father, Conrad, and became a partner in the business in 1877. Henry Gass Sr., Conrad's brother, worked as a potter with his sons Levi, Henry Jr., and John. His pottery works were in various locations throughout Lancaster City. Henry Gass Jr. took over the family business when his father died. One of his sons, Harry, also became a potter. The business closed in 1913. The pieces you see here from the estate of Clark Hess were excavated from the location of the Henry Gass Pottery Works at Manor Street in 1977. Landis Valley is very happy because the estate of Clark Hess decided to donate these pieces to the collection when the exhibit is done. Every piece here, except this one, was made by Henry Gass. This piece was made by Amos Gass. This is a Seder square palindrome plate from 1880. This square of 25 letters reads the same forwards and backwards, up and down, and has been documented in ritual use since at least 79 AD when it was preserved at Pompeii. The popular powwowing manual, The Long Lost Friends, provides instructions for extinguishing a fire without water by using a plate inscribed with the Seder square palindrome on both sides. The plate was to be thrown into fire in order to ritually extinguish the blaze in times of emergency. There was no agreed upon translation at this time. Other examples, not in redware, are also shown here. These are 2 rare redware doll heads. The male is the only known existing example of a boy redware doll head. The head, neck, and shoulder plates were sewn to a doll's body made of fabric. These are both puzzle jugs, which are an amusing tavern game or a conversation starter. It appears impossible to pour liquid from a puzzle jug without spilling it. However, the jug has a hidden interior tube that runs around the holes. It takes trial and error to figure out how to drink out of a puzzle jug. This piece was made by Solomon Bell of the famous Bell family, which included Samuel and John. Solomon worked in Virginia with his brother Samuel. They operated there for more than 4 decades. Solomon died from an illness brought on by the heat of the kiln. This is a 3-piece, 16-inch high, amazing water cooler from 1850 to 1870. These are more pieces from the Bell family. These are some of my favorite pieces in the whole exhibit. I urge you to see them in person because photographs do not do them justice. They are miniature and they are tiny. Potters produced a large number of miniature pieces in redware. Most miniature redware was either unglazed or covered with a black or clear lead slip. Unique miniatures are those with several colors. This is a tea canister from 1769 made by Englishman Joseph Smith, who you may remember used English words on his pottery instead of German. We saw a plate earlier. You can see 1769 inside a pretzel motif, J. Smith, a T followed by an E, followed by a spoon and an A. This is a reassembled slip decorated redware bowl that might have been made by a colonial potter in Philadelphia between 1730 to 1750. Its fragments were recovered during a 1982 excavation at Stenton, the country house of James Logan, William Penn's agent and proprietary secretary. Logan was also in charge of Pennsylvania's Indian policy. The lack of wear to the glazed interior surface suggests that this bowl was created for show rather than everyday use. Possibly the only known piece of redware made in America prior to 1750 that is decorated with an image of a Native American who has been identified as the name seen on the top of the screen. He was a chief from a group of Mohawk Indians. 1710, the chief was also known by his Anglican name, Brant, and he went to England with 3 other Iroquois representatives. The slip figure on the bowl was taken from a set of 4 mezzotints of the 4 Native Americans engraved by John Simon of the oil portraits commissioned by Queen Anne. This is a Snow Hill Nunnery slip decorated redware soup bowl attributed to the Bell family pottery of Waynesboro. It's one of the latest additions to the Landis Valley redware collection. You may know it, but I'm going to give you a little history about Snow Hill. In the 1790s, Peter Lehman urged the Antietam congregation in Franklin County, which was practicing the Dunker faith, to adopt a celibate lifestyle of Ephrata. Barbara Snowberger was interested, but her husband, was not. Barbara left the congregation with her youngest child with the intention of becoming a sister at Ephrata Cloister. Andreas found them and begged her to return, saying he changed his mind. In 1798, Barbara, Andreas, and 3 of their adult children, Barbara, Elizabeth, and John, formed their own communal society based on the Ephrata model. It would soon become known as Snow Hill Cloister, and they were the first celebrant members of the society. Snow Hill Cloister was established on their farm and housed a celibate brotherhood and sisterhood in a large community house or nunnery. Married members were permitted to worship with the celibates. Snow Hill never grew very large. By 1872, there were 8 brothers and 8 sisters. It was disbanded in March 1889. The contents of the building was sold at auction on August 11th, 1997. 40 redware bowls made by Waynesboro potter John Bell were sold at this auction. We saw other pieces by the Bell family earlier. These bowls were used to serve stew during the love feast. These are some of the other Snow Hill bowls that I've seen or that have recently been sold. This is a bank made in the shape of an empire-style chest of drawers with a swirl in the glaze imitating the grain of burled wood. Sorry. It was made in 1867 by the Northern Liberty Pottery. James and Thomas Jr. Haig took over the pottery from their father, Thomas Sr., after his death. In 1842, James Haig is listed separately as earthenware manufacturer in Philadelphia. These are two of my favorite figurines in the exhibit. I really enjoy the humor in them. The one on the left was made by Joseph K. Henney in Berks County. The one on the right was made by Milton Hoops in Chester County. Through the exhibit and bringing together so many pieces of redware and being able to examine them closely together, we made a number of discoveries during our planning. I already showed you the Solomon Grimm plate we identified. We also attributed this lion to Milton Hoops, who also made the figure on the right. We made the attribution based on the design on the base of both pieces. These are 3 buttons, which are believed to have been made in Norwalk, Connecticut. I was really surprised to learn that there were buttons made out of redware. On the left is a birdhouse made by Vickers Pottery from 1840 to 1860. Thomas Vicker and his son, John, were Quaker potters, farmers, abolitionists, and agents on the Underground Railroad. Often, runaway slaves were concealed in the hay among the pottery in the Vickers wagons. Vickers Pottery also made the flower pot on the right. All right, now we have come to my favorite piece in the exhibit. This is it. It's a charger from the 18th century. It is believed that the inscription reads, "This it is that Christ suffered for us and for our benefit, and of which the Spirit remains as a pledge." It is believed that the potter of this charger was attempting to render in sgraffito and slip a Baroque engraving of Michelangelo's marble sculpture, the Deposition. As with the sculpture, the 4 figures are depicted. The dead body of Jesus Christ, Nicodemus, Mary Magdalene, and the Virgin Mary. Looking closely, you can see the lance, reed, rooster, pillar, hand, and nails depicted. So those are my favorites from the 2-year redware exhibit. If you ask me tomorrow, I might show you something else, such as a molded fish flask, a slip decorated political plate, or a jelly mold. Now, please come visit the exhibit in person now that we've reopened. Photographs do not do these pieces justice. You need to experience the breadth, artistry, and variety in person. You will never see an exhibit of redware of this size again with so many outstanding pieces. You can also purchase an exhibit catalog that has all of the pieces in it, either at Landis Valley or on our website. But please make sure to get to the exhibit before December 31st, 2021. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. That was wonderful. Can you just let people know what Landis Valley's hours are right now?
I would love to. Right now we are doing tours on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Unfortunately, I do not know the hours of the tour, but if you call the front desk or look on our website, they can let you know.
Okay, thank you. All right, ceramics are a particular interest of mine, so I always enjoy looking at these. I haven't seen the second part yet, so I've got to get down there. We do have a couple of questions that came in. Can you talk a little bit about the clay? Mike Weber asked what redware potters prefer, particular clay for making the redware. Can you talk a little bit about some of the clay used?
Yep, I will stop sharing so we could. Yes, the clay that we have here in Pennsylvania was very similar to the clay they had in Germany, and it was already on their farms most of these potters were farmers, and then when they would not be farming is when they would make the redware, so to supplement their income. The clay, it is red clay, that's what gets its name, and it was easier to produce or to make into the redware instead of stoneware or other items, because you didn't have to fire it as hot as you did other kind of pottery.
Okay. Terry Pierce is asking, are the plates with sayings on them one of a kind, or did the potter make several of them?
No, items like that were usually one of kind. You usually paid more for those than you did for like just a plain plate that didn't have anything on it. And those are, you could see some of them have crafts. Redware is very fragile. It breaks very easily. And those were prized because, and they probably weren't even used. They probably were more display pieces.
Somewhere along the line, I heard redware compared to our modern Rubbermaid or Tupperware is breaks, you throw it out. It's
Yeah.
no big loss because so many potters around.
Yeah, and they would know when the potter was going to open the kiln, so they would go to the kiln and stand in line and get what they needed for the next year until they opened the kiln again.
Mm-hmm. We had the great privilege to attend Old Sturbridge Village when they did the kiln firing quite a few years ago, and that they have an enormous kiln that they load and fire and have a big program around it. It's pretty amazing to watch. Megan is wondering, German immigrants in New York get less press than Pennsylvania. Has much been preserved from the New York German immigrants?
I fortunately do not know. I was able, in the exhibit, you will see pieces from the North, Midwest, and from the South, but I don't believe I have anything from the North that is from New York.
Okay, and Terry again, does Foltz pottery and Reinhold's use the same techniques as was shown in some of the pottery?
He does, and I didn't show them because I showed all old pieces, but in the exhibit, I do have a case that highlights potters from today. So Ned Foltz is exhibited actually in this year, so you could see his work, and then there's some other potters that are exhibited that do their work today. We also, in 2019, we took a bus trip to some modern potters, including Ned Foltz. Fortunately, our one last year had to be canceled, but we will see what happens in the future.
Okay, great. And seems to be it. Anybody else have any more comments questions they'd like to ask of Jen? She's done an amazingly remarkable amount of research. The book is fabulous. It's available on Landis Valley website and in their museum store, which the museum store is open the same days as the site. So do put that on your list to go see for sure. Not seeing anything else come in at the moment. So I am going to, let's see, where am I? Stop the recording.